Sir, we know that you have done your MTech in ocean engineering, and
Yeah.
you are a senior engineer in subsea, and we have got after looking into your resume, we are much interested to know, and since we have only half of the information, so we want to
Yeah.
know more, and we are so happy so that we got the opportunity to speak to you. So,
Yeah.
sir, can we have few questions? We have few questions for you. So, can we proceed, sir?
Yeah. Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Um, Sir, what are your earliest memories of school days? What do you like about school the most?
Uh, Also, I mean, can you type the message in the chat so that I don't miss? And if there are multiple questions, I don't miss the second question.
Okay, sir,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
For this, I'll answer it. Maybe next question you can just type it off. Earliest memory of school days, I would say maybe during my pre-KGs. That is when, like, I used to study in Vijayawada in Krishnaveni Public School. So at that time, my earliest memory was the lunchtime. So I used to uh, like all the children used to sit in a row and they used to have their food that they brought. And there used to be a small cat which used to sit right in front of me. And uh, and as long as it was there, I never used to open the box and have it. So out of the fear that okay, when I open the box, the cat would pounce on me and take all the food. So I used to wait for my grandmother, and she used to come and she used to feed me. That is the earliest memory I had on school days. Yeah. And the second question is,
So, what do
Did
you
you
like most
experience?
about the school?
the most about the school is the extracurricular activities we used to have in our school back then. I guess nowadays you guys are not so lucky to have such good schools with a large playground and the extracurricular activities. So I used to do painting a lot during school days. I mean, not now. I used to do pencil sketching. Uh, I used to go for competitions as well, representing my school. Then I was into athletics. I was very good at high jump. So actually, I got South Zone second in high jump during my school days, during my ninth class, I guess. And we used to play volleyball. I used to play Coco. I was a captain for the school team for Coco and volleyball. Most of the good memories I have with painting and sports only, nothing much on studies. I used to like science very much.
Oh,
My physics teacher was my favorite. Then, well, he used to encourage me on sports also, but yeah. And
So did you experience any hurdles during your studies?
I would say no. I mean, economically, I don't say any hurdles because back then fees used to be very little. My when per month I used to pay some 150 rupees or something like that for my school fees. I guess nowadays that was not the case, I guess. Uh, and that is a very good school. You might have heard, right? DAV Public School. Uh, I'm not sure. Okay. So that's a very good school. Like we used to have a lot of curricular activities there. And I had very good, happy schooling back then. No hurdles as such.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you please share your experiences at Thiruvananthapuram based National Transportation Planning and Research Center during internship? How important was this internship in your career, sir?
Yeah. Actually, after my third year, second semester, we had this internship. I guess I'm not sure whether you're having it or not now. Do you guys still have it or?
sir, actually, we got
We
a
don't
new
know, sir.
proposal about highway, Raipur and Visakhapatnam highway internship.
Okay, so you are having internships still continuing. Okay, that practice is good. Okay, so during my bachelor's, like that was the project that I was like we had to go to NATPAC to do our work on traffic studies on MG Road. That is a stretch of some 4 to 5 kilometers as far as I remember, and there are totally 11 junctions along that stretch. And traffic is a major issue there. Like if there is a signal at one point, you will have the traffic lined up till the next signal point. It is such heavy traffic. So our task is to, like, they gave us 4 junctions at which we need to estimate the future depending on that estimated values. They'll be designing the road. I mean, they'll go for the road extension. So for that, I guess 3-2, you might have know, you had this traffic engineering studies, right? Now the transportation, it is a traffic.
Yes.
Yeah, so what we do, we calculate traffic at junctions, like number of buses that pass through, or number of uh, say bikes, number of cars. We calculate number of those vehicles, and we convert them into equivalent. I don't know, that is passenger car unit, I guess, or is it right? Or
Yes,
we
sir.
actually convert that
Yes, sir.
into
PCUs.
equivalent.
We convert into PCUs.
Yeah, PCU. So we convert that into equivalent PCU, and based on that value, we go for future estimation based on either we can take a arithmetic mean or geometric mean, or I guess we used the trend. Like there is a trend estimation method. So we already had the past data, and we had the present data. So based on that trend, we can estimate the future value using a trend line. So that is how we estimated the future value, and we submitted our report. And as far as this study goes, it was purely teamwork. Like we need to coordinate ourselves between 4 junctions parallelly. So that is, and also that was the first report I have ever made. Uh, so I got, I mean, my report, I got very good comments on it, because see, here I had to submit 2 reports. One is to the department, and one is to the NATPAC. So NATPAC made sure that my report is in proper format, and like that is when I got to know about this formatting styles, and the way it needs to be presented. So everything I got to know during that project. That was my base for all the projects, even I do till date. That was the base.
Sir, what was the strategy you adopted for the preparation for the GATE examination? Could you suggest some tips for the GATE aspirants?
Okay, as far as strategy goes, okay, I took my first gate when I was doing third year. Back then, even with when you're studying third year, you can actually take up a gate exam. I'm not sure what is the case now. So that year, I wrote gate exam just like that, without any strategy or preparation, and I got close to 4,000 odd figure. And next year, with little preparation during my fourth year, I got some time during the project. With that little preparation, and I was not too much into it. I just wrote, okay, just let's see what happens. I was of that attitude at then. So that year, I wrote both GATE and also BITS Pilani. There is a separate BITS Pilani exam for masters. So that year, I got 2,700 in GATE, and 7th rank in BITS Pilani. And I got structures in BITS Pilani. BITS Pilani is much easier to crack. Okay, there'll be very little competition, because not many people know about it. Okay, so I don't take credits for it. The major competition would be the masters only. I mean, the GATE only. So and I got marine structures in NIT Surathkal. So I thought my dream back then was to, only institute I know back then is IIT Madras and GEP COE. So I mean, these are all, I mean, I know what GEP COE is, but IIT Madras is the final destination at that time for me. So if I want to do masters, I want to do it in IIT Madras only. So that was my goal back then. And I want to do masters. The second thing. So I didn't, and also I got placed in Simplex infrastructures, and at that time that was the highest package that we used to get. I don't know what is the package that they're offering now. Back then it was close to 3.5 lakhs. That was the max that you can get for a BTech pass out. So, and they offered me a field job in Champa district. It's an Naxalite area, okay, in Jharkhand. So, as me being the only child to my parents, I mean only male child to the parents, I could not risk up myself to going to an excellent area and working there. So, so, um, I took up GATE as my goal, and I took my coaching in ACE Academy in Hyderabad. And parallelly, I could not ask money from my parents. So me, along with three of my batchmates, we started working in a college, local college, Gokraj Rangraju. You might have known the college, right? Okay. We used to, all the four, we used to work there, and we used to parallelly do a preparation for the GATE. So, and we used to attend every class. We are actually the evening batch, but we used to go for morning batches. We used to go for weekend batches. We used to go for evening batches. We used to go for all the batches. So each subject I might have heard at least 3-4 times. So it is basically revision only, like revision of the same thing that was happening. But right before GATE, I mean a month before the final GATE exam, there was this practice test. So when I did the test, I just scored 28 out of 100. That was close to the marks that I got earlier, a year before, without any preparation, without any much preparation. So that is the turning point for me. That is when I shift the gears and started the actual preparation. So as far as a suggestion goes, I would give 4 suggestions for your GATE preparation. The first one is do not work hard, work smart. Okay, you should know, like, you have a syllabus for it, and you should know what to prepare. If you know what to prepare, it is very easy to crack GATE. Okay. Like there are some topics that are important, and they get repeated almost every year. Every second GATE paper, you will see that a question from those topics. There are some very important topics, so you should know those topics, and you should target those. And also, few subjects might be very important in GATE, few are not so important. Like some subjects will have very high weightage. Something like geotech might almost back then it used to give close to 15 marks for geotech only, and the whole water resources used to give 15 marks. Water resources include irrigation engineering, hydrology, fluid mechanics. So everything included, like, used to get 15-16 marks, and only geotech used to get 15 marks together. So I mean, pattern used to be like that back then. So you need to work smart to understand, okay, what are the important things and which I need to study. And I was very poor at mathematics, so I never prepared mathematics. So being that as my as I'm weak in it, I used to concentrate on things that I'm very strong in it, and also build my capability. Okay, I'm okay in this, but I want to become strong in this particular subject. So that is how I improved my skills on those subjects. That has helped me in cracking GATE. And the second one I would suggest is staying motivated. See, when you make your plan to what to do, but when you start the plan, okay, you'll be very enthusiastic to start it. But after doing 1-2 days of following the plan, you won't stay motivated to continue continue the same thing for the whole plan duration, right? So unless you stay motivated during your whole plan duration, you won't be able to crack it. Okay, so you should right from the beginning until the end, you should have that motivation in you to crack it. Only then you will be able to crack anything, not only GATE exam. It applies to anything. And next one, the tests. The tests are very important. So for me, the test was an enlightenment. Okay, so I got 28 marks with preparation. So that is when I started. I took the test sheet. I took the answers I have done, and the calculations I have made. I have my own rough sheets, right? So I checked where I made the mistakes. So my most of my mistakes were interpretation mistakes. Like, okay, this is the question, and how you interpret the question is the important thing, right? So I know the formula. I know how to do the calculation, but if your interpretation is wrong, there is you won't be able to achieve a right result. So that is where I used to lose marks. So that is when I started. There at the time we used to have a paper based. I don't think they are continuing that anymore. So then I started marking on the test paper. I mean question paper. On the question I used to mark. Okay, this is the value of h. This is the value of t. So I used to mark on it and I used to apply the formula. And so I knew my mistakes where I'm actually making the mistakes. So and I tried correcting them. And after a week, for the next test, I scored almost 45 marks for the out of 100. So it is almost I'd say 40% increase, right? More than 40% increase. So that is how, like, for each test, I used to write the test. I used to say for writing test, it used to take me 2.5 to 3 years, and for analyzing the results, it used to take 6 to 8 hours. So I used to spend that much time in analyzing. Okay, where I did the mistake. So only when you know your mistakes, you will be able to correct them. Okay. And the next suggestion I would give is revise, repeat, and yeah, revise it number of times. Repeat and revise are both of them. Okay. So repeat it, repeat whatever you're studying, you repeat it. You try to remember, and also while remembering, you should understand things. So you should know, okay, just repeating it doesn't, without understanding, you won't be able to remember it for longer duration, right? So try to understand it first. After understanding it, try to revise and remember it. And after that, practice it. Okay, you have revised it, you know the formula now. You should know if this is the question, how to apply it. So you need to practice a number of problems, only then you will be able to apply the same formula and you will be able to solve it. So this has worked for me in my Great Depression, all these 4 points.
Based on your experience, what general advice you would like to give to the civil engineering graduates, sir?
General advice in this sense, I mean, all I would give is follow your passion. So you should have clarity on what you're doing. Back then, we had nobody to mentor us. Okay, nobody told us, okay, this is good, this is the right way to go. Nobody mentored us. So we ourselves had explored. I mean, back then we don't have. All we had is a Facebook only, and we used to use for all nonsense things. We never used it for the right thing. Okay, and we didn't have that group to know what other person is doing, what he want to do next, and what is the right way for me. And there is nobody to guide us. But now we have a very good platform that is built up. You will always find some guidance on your career. So back then, our professor is the only career guide that we got. And they might be very good at academics, but they don't actual picture what is happening in the companies, or like they don't have the complete picture. So unless you speak with different people from different backgrounds, you won't know what is happening on the ground. So if you want to work on the field, you should speak with the engineer who is working on a field, right? Yeah, if you want to know what an analysis engineer is doing, you need to speak with the analysis engineer. Only then you'll know what he's doing. And if you want to do your research, you should speak with the researcher or a professor. A professor is a very good. If you want to pursue your career in research, speaking with the professor is the first thing that he'll give the best advice for the research. So it depends on how you want to take your career. But only thing is, you have to speak with the people. If you're not speaking with the people, you won't get any advice from anyone else. Unless you take the initiative and speak with them, you won't get any advice. So take the initiative, speak with people from different background, and choose your career that is right for you and based on your interests and your passion. For us, we used to. In my case, I actually checked everything. Okay, I was into academics. I was into research. I was into engineering. So I was into almost everything. So unless I experienced, okay, I would know, okay, I'll check this for maybe half a year. I'll know what is good and bad about it, whether it is right for me. Then I used to switch the career into next one, and I used to explore like that. Finally, I got into a career that is more suitable for me. So that is the way I did. Back then, we had very limited know-hows on these things, but now, as you have very good social media build up, try to speak with the right people and interact with them and know which is right for you. Introspect, you need to introspect. Okay, unless you know what is good for you, you won't be able to get into right career for you.
Okay, sir. Sir, it appears you took a break of 2 years after completing BTech to pursue masters. What was the reason for choosing ocean engineering?
Okay, it is not break to pursue masters. As I was saying, I was not clear which way I should go back then. I would put it like that. So basically, at that time, I said I was preparing for GATE. So parallel, I was also teaching. So I thought back then, I thought, okay, I want to do get into academics and do some research. That was my idea then. Then. There is a one. I mean, after completing getting the gate score, I had a 1 year break. There are some personal reasons for that, and also the admission I got. I didn't get satisfied with the admission I got. So I had a rank of 270 in gate in 2012, I guess. Yeah, 2012. So and I got with that rank, I could not get any PSU. At that time they used to very limited number of seats for PSU now, and also they only IOCL and HPCL used to come for uh, I mean recruitment to GATE. I guess now that number might have increased. So so for my rank, I got and also as I said, nobody is there to guide me to choose the right thing. Even I don't know how to put the priority in my admission list. So I got geotech in IIT Kharagpur, and I could not join due to some personal reasons. And then I started my career as a GATE tutor. I used to teach water resource engineering here in Vizag. I used to teach irrigation, hydrology, and fluid mechanics for the students. So then I next year also took up the GATE exam, and I got close to 500 rank. 532 is, so my rank has actually depreciated rather than so with the, but GATE score was better than the older one. Rank is different, the GATE score is different. You might have already known. So my GATE score has improved, but my rank has depreciated. So with the score, I got ocean engineering in both IIT Madras and IIT Bombay. I choose IIT Madras over IIT Bombay for my admission. And the reason behind taking ocean engineering as a career was one thing is I was interested in fluid mechanics, and the water resource part. Back then, while choosing ocean engineering, I don't have complete picture of it. So I thought it is just fluid mechanics. I mean, extinction of fluid mechanics. And also at the time the oil price per barrel was very good. It was close to $100 per barrel, and oil price used to touch around 80 rupees per liter in India. So that is a very good period for choosing a career in oil and gas. So oil and gas, ocean engineering is one way of getting into oil and gas. So depending on the market conditions, I chose ocean engineering, and I got into it. Yeah. And when I completed my career, the oil price has dropped to $19 per barrel. See, when I joined it, it's $100. When I completed masters, it was down to $19 to $20. That is the least oil price that I have seen. Basically, with the fields like oil and gas, it is cyclical. So at one moment, like you will have very good prices, and maybe after 2-3 years, you'll see it falling down. So it all depends upon demand and supply. So when the demand rises, they increase the supply. So there'll be a lot of supply. When there is supply rise, again there'll be a drop in price. So it is fully dependent upon the demand and supply. So so my choice proved bad after 2 years of uh, after 2 years completing my masters. But as far as course goes, I would say this is very interesting course, and you have very good opportunities in this. You can nowadays with the ocean background, you can go for oil and gas. You can also go for ocean renewable energy. So there are very good opportunities. Also, you can get into research. And one more thing is there is very limited competition in this. See, every odd college will offer structural engineering or other branches of civil engineering, but there will be very few colleges that offer sub courses like marine engineering or ocean engineering. So only when there is a rarity on the course you take, only then there'll be a chance to excel. There'll be chance for you to excel in it. So always, I believe is choose the right course that is good for you, and also choose the one that has good future potential. That is when you'll have a good career growth going forward. Yeah.
So please share with us the appreciation you received from Dr. Harshavardhan Garu, Union Minister of Earth Science, for the project GOI for OCT model testing.
Okay. Dr. Harshvardhan, he is still the Union Minister for Health and also for Department of Science as well, Science and Technology. So that was for the project of ocean current turbine testing. So we are actually trying to extract energy from ocean. There are various ways of doing it. So you can go for a current turbine. You can go for VAV based energy extraction. You can go for OTEC, ocean thermal energy. So there are different ways of extracting energy from ocean. So one way is using the current. So current is caused by anybody. Why there'll be currents in ocean? You know water waves, right? The waves are the things that you see in your beach. Those are actually broken waves. The wave, if it breaks, it becomes a surf. That is what you see in your beach. And there's something called current as well. Current is the fluid particle moves from one location to other location. So when it is moving it will have some energy. Okay, so that energy we actually need to convert it to produce electricity. Okay, so for converting it, one way is using ocean current turbine. So the turbine was designed. Most of it is done in ANSYS, and then it was manufactured and tested in the test labs of IIT Madras. And then that was and the superstructure for the system was designed in NIOT. So I was a person who did the superstructure design and modeling in StatPro. So I got a chance to work on that. So we designed it. We designed it over a period of 1.5 months. That was pretty quick in terms of the timelines that you speak in government institutions. So we completed that in almost the analysis part was done in almost 1.5 year. Then in 15 days we completed its assembly, and we deployed in a week's time. And that was deployed in Andaman and Nicobar Islands near 1 second. So that was deployed near Port Blair. So before deploying it, we had to do some marine surveys to check where the current is good. So there we used to see currents close to 2 meter per second, and that is very good current in terms of energy extraction. So, and also there is an island near close to the area called Rutland. That is very remote island, and there is no source of electricity there. So only source that they depend is on solar, and that is fully covered by forests and huge trees. And there is very a small settlement there. So now the target is to provide electricity to that settlement using the current turbine. So there is this flow that takes place between Andaman Sea and Bay of Bengal. So there is a small a channel of around 50 meters wide. So in the channel, we identified locations where we're getting peak velocities at that particular chosen depth, and we extracted electricity. So our test setup is a model setup. So we could generate only close to 150 watts. So it is actually 1:10 scale. It is the aim is to scale it to 10 times that capacity. So that has worked almost on the first attempt, and that is when we got appreciation from the Ministry of Science and Technology, as Ministry of Earth Sciences, sorry, MOES. So Dr. Harshvardhan was the minister back then, Union Minister for MOES back then. So, and the project lead got a distinguished scientist award, and along with the team got appreciation certificates. So that's the story about it. So if you are interested in ocean engineering, their possibilities are very huge. You can get into renewable, or you can get into oil and gas. You can also get into research. There are many things that are unknown to humans about oceans. I would say we know very little about the outer space, right? Outside our environment. Similarly, we know very little about our deep oceans. So I would say both of them are almost same. So one is a space where there is no pressure. Other is a space where you have huge pressure. So there'll be a lot of the whole water. Right? So if you go to 1,000 meters deep in sea, you'll have crushing pressures. Like it would actually crush anything. Like it is like almost having like 1 kilometer of water weighing on you. So they are very, very. The knowledge about ocean at that depths is very little. So there are huge possibilities if you want to get into it. You can also get into ocean related environmental engineering. So if you want to, even before doing any ocean engineering related activities there, you need to do environmental studies. So whatever project you are doing, it should not affect the marine life there, right? So there are studies done even for that. So if you're interested, you can get into that as well. So the possibilities are huge for ocean engineering. And you can also get into geotechnical engineering for ocean. So say for example, if you have a structure that you want to drop it to the seabed, so that seabed should have capacity to hold that structure weight, right? So even there, the geotechnical is required. So, and they also do mining, deep ocean mining. That is a new technology that is coming up. So there are wide possibilities if you are interested into getting into ocean engineering. Yeah, I guess I'm stretching it a lot. Maybe we can go for next question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. In which instances have you demonstrated leadership skills, and how would you describe your style of dealing with relationships, sir?
Relationships in the sense personal or in office?
In office, sir, if you would like to share, you can share personal too.
So what is the first part of the question? I missed it.
Like, where did you demonstrate leadership skills, and how did you maintain relationships?
See, in every project you take up, you hold a responsibility to do the job on time, with perfection, and with the client satisfaction. So if these are done, you won't have any. I mean, you will have a very good career ahead. So these should be satisfied. The work you should do, you're doing, it should be delivered on time. Should be delivered with perfection. There should not be any, okay, you did this thing wrong, and it should not come back to you. And also the client should be happy with whatever work you're doing. So if these things are satisfied, so you'll have very good career. And to satisfy this, I would say the teamwork is the most important thing. See, entire project work won't be given to one person, right? It will be given to a group of people, and you need to interact with them to get some information for your work. And it is responsibility on you to take the information from him, and to do your job and submit the results, and also tell the results to the next person who require your results. Okay, so it is a teamwork. It could be anything, even if it is a analysis job, or if it is a field job, it is teamwork that is very important. So you should be dealing with people under you. You should be dealing with the people above you. There'll be always these two persons. There'll be people under you. There'll be people above you. Unless you are an entrepreneur and you are the owner of the company, and you got nobody to report to. So at the time, the person above you is your heart and your profits. So so you should be so to have a good career ahead, you need to take the responsibility and interact with the people you need to interact with. I mean, your juniors and your seniors. And also you should never hesitate to ask questions. Okay, the day you hesitate to ask questions, that is the day when your downfall starts. Okay, so always, if you have a question, raise it, even to your professor. If you're having okay, you didn't understand this thing, you're not you don't want to, you feel hesitated to ask it in front of your friends, go to your professor's cabin and ask the question. He is not going to hit you or kill you, right, for asking the question. Okay, why to feel embarrassed for asking a question? So just go and ask a question. Even in when you're working in office, there you'll have parallels in your team with or you will have seniors in your team with who might have knowledge on the particular field. So always you should feel free to interact with them, ask questions, and you need to build your relationship. Okay, so um, we used to go for lunch every day with different people on different days. We never had a fixed team. So if you have a group of friends, and if you always go with those friends only, you'll have only that circle. If you eat with everyone, if you chat with everyone, you'll have a bigger circle. You understand? So when you're stuck on something, you'll get help from all the people. So do not restrict yourself to 2 or 3 people. Maintain a good relationship with everyone, and and if you're stuck on something, ask. Only when you ask, you will have your solutions. Okay, maybe you are a small problem, you know how to do it, but you might take a longer amount of time to solve it. Somebody else might know easier way of doing it. So it is always good to speak to that person, right? So I would suggest, I mean, social media in the sense, chatting on WhatsApp or putting a Facebook chats. I mean, that is not the social interaction. I would say social interaction is when you go to a person in person and ask your questions and get solutions out of it. So going forward, this whatever suggestion I'm giving now, this is going to be very important for your career. So never hesitate in asking questions. The other person is not going to kill you. Okay, why to feel embarrassed in asking a question? Yeah.
Sir, can we know the best opportunities in the ocean engineering field as a career option?
Yeah, I guess this I already covered. So I would say you can go into research. There are very wide areas where research was very limited as of now. I was saying, right, there is very limited know-hows on outer space. Also, there is limited know-how on the ocean space. So very few people know very little about ocean engineering. So there are wide opportunities and possibilities in field of ocean engineering. So if you want to go into research, you can explore different things. You can study about currents. You can study about waves. You can study about deep ocean mining. You can study about marine environment. You can study about ocean geotechnics. So there are wide areas if you want to get into research as well. And also, if you want to do analysis kind of work, there are companies right in India only. You not go out of the country as well. You can do right in. There are many MNCs inside India where you can actually work for both renewable energy and also uh, in oil and gas. In oil and gas, in India, there are companies like I would say oil and gas analysis that is related to engineering, not oil and gas manufacturing or extraction. I won't speak about that. I'll speak about the engineering. So as far as engineering goes, there are companies like Oceaneering. There are companies Oceaneering, Technip FMC. There is Afcons, and mm, there are small. There are many small companies, Nevla companies like Vedam, Aryatech, Marentech, uh, and McDermott, uh, and Flor and Daniel. So there are many Swiber. There are many companies. Saipem. There are many companies. I can give you a whole list of oil and gas engineering companies operating in India. And if you want to get into renewables, it is entirely new space as of now. And you can, for renewables, you can get into institutes like NIVI, National Institute of Wind Energy, NIOT. I mean, these two are national institutes, and there are also MNC companies like NKT Cables. They do renewable stuffs in like that. There are many MNC companies that have their setups in India. For renewables, there are very limited number of companies right now. But going forward, down the line, 2-3 years, you will have many of the MNCs companies have their engineering bases in India. And even in these engineering jobs, you'll have opportunity to go offshore, see the actual installation, and even supervise installation. So you'll have very good opportunities. You can go for service, oceanographic service. So I mean, engineering in oceaning is not restricted to only analysis. You'll have opportunity to visit offshore as well. Yeah. And if you want to go into academics as a professor, you can complete after masters. You can do your PhD and do postdoc and get into any premier. There are many premier institutes worldwide, and you can. And there is very little competition in this particular field. So you can become a professor and researcher there, and guide researchers there. So possibilities are huge, many. Yeah.
A civil engineer should coordinate activities both at the site and office. Do you think a civil engineer should be very good at multitasking, sir?
I would say yes. Because see, most of these drawings or analysis work is done in office. It is not done on the field, right? So unless you know what is happening in the office, you won't be able to say, for example, there is a draftsman who has sent you a drawing to the field. So you need to understand what, how the drawing looks like. Unless you know how to interpret the drawing, you won't be able to do actual work on the field. Okay, so you should know. Okay, and also the drawings may not be accurate, 100% accurate the time they are coming to your hand. You might actually on the field itself you might have noticed an anomaly in the drawing that might have prevented a catastrophe after building it. So it is important for you to understand the drawing and also understand if there are any problems with the drawing. You need to understand it and you need to report it back. Okay, that is your it helps you in a career growth. It also helps you in preventing a disaster going forward. Okay, so and if you don't know what the analysis guy is doing or what the draftsman is doing, and if you don't interpret it properly, you won't be able to do your field work properly, right? Okay, and say for example there are some field tests. There is some contest, right? Concrete. I might have forgot most of it. Like this, I rarely worked with concrete afterwards. So if you don't know how to interpret the results of a sum contest, you won't be able to do your field job properly, right? So it is very important to have the basis, and you should know the engineering behind it before actually supervising the construction. So it is not that okay, I'm only supervising, I'll do only supervise job. That will never work. You should have the basis of it. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing your opinion, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, sir, nearly with 9 years of apprenticeships and worked on different projects and positions, could you please share with us a few interesting experiences?
Interesting experience, I would say. I'll speak about the new projects. I mean, not repetitive ones, which were interesting for me. Okay.
Sure.
So one was the OCT, Ocean Current Turbine, that I already spoke about. And I want to speak about my master's project as well. So that was on vortex induced vibrations. Uh, so that was on cylinder structures, how it is going to uh, impact the motion of the cylinder structure, and also at what velocity it is going to lock in. You understand lock in, right? Okay, you know resonance, right? Resonance is similar to lock in. So at particular velocity of the current, the shape will actually starts exciting a lot. That is called that will have a Stokholm frequency, and if the Stokholm frequency matches with the natural frequency of the structure, it is going to resonate. So that is called lock-in. So these lock-in would be a major problem in offshore structures, because you cannot avoid current. Ocean current will always be there. Just like you cannot stop a wind, right? On surface, you won't be able to stop wind. You need to design your structures to resist that wind. Similarly, in ocean also you won't be able to stop the current. So current will always be there. So you need to live with it. So the structures you are designing should be able to withstand the current. And two ways of doing it: making it too strong or making it too flexible. Only thing is you need to avoid that resonance point. Making it too rigid will decrease its natural frequency. Will increase its natural frequency, and making it more flexible will decrease its natural frequency. So one or the other way, you're actually playing with dynamics. Okay, so I worked on a way of two ways of methods to mitigate that current induced vortex vibrations. So that was an interesting project. That is, I mean, when you're studying it, you won't feel it, but when you experience it physically, you'll feel it, how severe that would be. Maybe I can share a video of the test as well. You would see like it oscillates almost 15 to 20 centimeters. It's just a small test piece. Under current, it oscillates almost 15 to 20 centimeters. It is that huge oscillation. And if that happens in real life, it will be catastrophic for the structure. And there are many good case studies on vortex induced vibrations. I'll share those links as well. Maybe after this
Sure.
meet. Yeah. And other important one was OCT, which I already spoke about. And next important one is OTEC. OTEC is you for energy. I mean, for renewable energies, you might have heard about geothermal energy, right? Did you hear anytime geothermal energy, wind energy, solar energy,
Yes, sir.
geothermal? So just like geothermal is when you take the heat from underneath the earth at some certain depth and use that heat and the temperature difference from the surface of the earth and the temperature from deep inside the earth, and this temperature difference is used to produce electricity. Further, there will be a system. Similarly, OTEC is it follows similar principles of geothermal. Here, what we do is instead of digging into earth, we actually drop a pipe into sea, and in deep ocean we have temperatures close to say if you take 1,000 meters depth, that the temperature will be close to 6 to 7 degrees near Indian subcontinent. So so their temperature is very low. 6 to 7 degrees is very low, and on surface you will have temperatures close to 23 degrees centigrade. So you can use this temperature difference almost 23 to -7, whatever the value that comes. That temperature is actually I already said you I am very poor at mathematics. Okay, so this temperature is used to flash evaporate water. So water boils at which temperature? Water boils at which temperature?
100 degrees.
Yeah, 100 degrees centigrade
100
at
degrees
room.
Celsius, sir.
Yeah, 100 degrees at room pressure. I mean, whatever atmospheric pressure you see, in that atmospheric pressure, normal atmospheric pressure, it will boil at 100 degrees centigrade. Okay, if you take the same water in a pressure cooker, at what temperature that would the water would evaporate?
Less than 100 degrees.
Okay, let's say less than 100 or more than 100.
Less than 100, sir.
How?
Maybe
Actually,
there will be more pressure,
yeah, with
no escape of gases.
yeah higher the pressure, the boiling point would actually increase. So at high pressure, it is going to boil at higher temperatures. That means it is going to hold more heat.
Okay, sir.
And that is how we actually cook rice faster in pressure cookers. Okay. Similarly, if there is a lower pressure, your boiling point would decrease. So instead of evaporating at 100 degrees, it will evaporate 30-40 degrees only if there is a low pressure. You understood? So this is the principle of flash evaporation. So what they do is they take the same water, they use this temperature difference of 23 and 7. There's this temperature difference, right? They use this temperature difference in a very low pressure chamber and they'll flash evaporate the water. And they use this vapor to run the turbine and generate the electricity. So this is one interesting project that I worked on. So, but unfortunately, I could not stay in an AOT till end of the project. I worked till middle of the design phase. I was working on the subsea pipeline. So they had to deploy. So this particular system they want to install in Kavaratti Islands. Do you know Kavaratti? Ever heard of it? Do you know Kerala? Okay, off Kerala coast, India has islands called Lakshadweep. Kavaratti is the capital of Lakshadweep. Okay, so being islands, one of the problem they face is, and these islands were very small parcels of lands, very small. Like you can actually walk from one end of the island to the other end in a day. You can complete a whole island in a day. So these are such small islands, and people are living in it. So as people are living in it, they need water and electricity. Okay, so see on source you'll be getting water from any of the water sources, but on an island getting drinking water is very difficult. All water you can see is salt water around. So to convert salt water into potable water, there are two ways. As far as I know, there are only two ways. One is oh no, there could be third way as well. So one is RO, reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis is the same principle we use in our water filters. And second one is distillation. Heat the water, collect the water that is on top, and use the water for drinking. Add some minerals and use it for drinking. And third one is this OTEC. You can use OTEC for generating electricity and also generating drinkable water as well. And you can use OTEC for see, you're taking water from very cold water from depth, right? You can use that cold water in your ACs as well. You can actually decrease the uh, temperatures in your rooms as well using the cold water. So there are many possibilities. So for and to get that depth, I mean 1000 meters depth and 7 degrees centigrade, we need to drop a pipeline, HDPE pipeline of 1 meter diameter to a depth of around 3.2 kilometers. And as I said, when there is a pipe that is going in the ocean, there'll be loads on it. There'll be wave load, there'll be current load. Due to current load, you'll have VAV, and there'll be joints of these pipes which might be critical, and there'll be fatigue due to which the joint might fail. So it is a full dynamic scenario. So we need to analyze it. So luckily I was part of it in analyzing that work, the ocean part of it. That is one of the very interesting project. And third one I would say is when after NIOT I joined Oceaneering. So during my end days in Oceaneering, I got very good project from Norway. That was on suction anchors. So till then the company has never explored into geotechnical engineering and oceaneering. So that was the first kind of work that they ever ventured into, and they had very short deadline, and I got that work. So they required a suction pile design, and that needs to be completed in a period of 40 days. And I got only two team members. One is a structural analyst who is very good at ANSYS. Like, he need to design the shell, right, for suction anchor. And second one is the company has no geotechnical people with geotechnical background. Only resource that they could find a somewhat little with geotech background with civil engineering is only me. I'm the only civil engineering in the company in Chandigarh. So luckily I got that work to do. So I got chance to estimate the suction loads and the load that suction anchor can take based on the soil conditions there. And we completed in within 40 days, and we actually built a tool on it using Excel VBA. And for any future projects that they're taking up, and I got very good appreciation for that from the client. That is one of the interesting works. And after joining Technip, I don't think so there is. It is more repetitive job here in Technip. So I mean, the first project I did was interesting. The same work I'm doing even this is the third project that I'm doing in Technip, and it is the same work that I'm doing. The same first, but once in a while you'll get very interesting works, like the one I said in geotechnical. So, but you should be willing to take such jobs to have very good to make your work interesting. Else you will feel bored and you won't feel like working. To stay interested in work, you need to search for good opportunities when you're working. So when you're getting, like, even while you're working, when you get a work which is out of your field, so don't hesitate to take up the work. So that's it. And maybe we can take the next
Sir,
question. Yeah.
you must have come across people who influenced you, motivated you, and you may consider some of them as your role models. Sir, could you throw some light on this point?
Influence me in the sense, okay, my first influence is my grandfather. I grew up with my grandparents. Okay, so till my 10th and almost half of my inter, I was with my grandparents only. I hardly used to visit my parents' house. So all my studies were from my grandparents' house. So my motivation back then was my grandfather. He had a huge library of books. He has very huge. He's a teacher, and he is a very good library. Like people used to come to my grandfather's house to take books home. So it is such huge collection. So uh, he was my first motivation. Through him, I got the habit of reading books. Uh, Mostly I love reading to stories, but I also read science related stuff. And during my bachelor's, my motivation was Professor Devdas Menon. He actually visited a GVP for one of the one of the event that is conducted in the college. And also, I was lucky enough to get an award from him for a competition that was held in IT Madras, for which we got first prize back then. So I received that award from Devdas Menon. And also, I met him a couple of times in IT Madras as well when I was a student there. So he was a very good guidance mentor. You go to him with any problem, he will have very good chat with you and he'll give a solution for you in a nice way. I would compare. I mean, the way he talks, I feel it is more like Sadhguru. Anybody listens to Sadhguru? uh, so he is that kind of person. I mean, he is very good at uh, his research and academic stuff, but he is also good at philosophical stuff. So, so he is one of my motivation. And after once I was into the actual working in the jobs, I used to motivate myself. Unless you motivate yourself and stay motivated, you won't be able to survive in the current environment outside. You need to motivate yourself. You should be your own motivation. That's it. Once you are into the actual working. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Your resume mentioned your passion for photography and you have traveled to various places to get the best snap. Why did you select this as a hobby?
I never had photography as a hobby. Even today, it is not a hobby. Okay. Uh, I got that camera as a gift in my marriage, for my marriage. That was gifted by my sister. So initially, I got very much enthusiastic on how the optics work in a camera, like the aperture, the shutter speed, the ISO. So all these things, they are optics and the way a DSLR works. So I started experimenting on it. I took number of shots on different settings to understand how how it is actually working. It is basically a two lens system, right? You have object piece, and it has a lens. It has a eyepiece. So it's basically a two lens system. So basically, the distance between it and the aperture size of it is making all the magic in a camera. And the sensor, basically, sensor is just like an eye for you. So I started with I felt that as interesting and I started with it, but later after experimenting so many failed photos, I got to know, okay, how a right photo should be taken, and I got into it. I don't take it as a hobby, but I like taking photos. That's it. I mean, there's nothing like I always do it. Okay, if I go for a trip, if I say something good, I just take a snap of it. It's not a hobby. And as far as hobbies goes, till my 9th class, I used to collect coins. Even today, I have that coin collection. It is a huge coin collection. The oldest coin I had is a coin dated to 18th century. I have a very good collection of coins. But later, I lost many of them. So later, I gave up the hobby. But whatever I retained, I have those coins even till date. Yeah.
Sir, we came to know that you won many prizes in different competitions held in various colleges. Could you please tell about your preparation for these competitions?
Yeah. Is it for sports or for,
For
I mean,
sports
which
and
kind
for
of
everything,
competitions?
sir.
Okay, if it is sports, you need to practice it. Unless you practice it, you won't be able to uh, be a competition to your opponent. So during school time, when we were practicing, we got very good support in the school those days for sports and extracurricular activities, especially from my science teacher. More than my PT teacher, my science teacher used to encourage me for sports. So back then I used to practice a lot, especially the high jump. Uh, then it is practice as far as sports goes. And for competitions, back in engineering days, actually we went for a couple of competitions in IT Madras, also in Geetam, Osmania University. So these are the competitions I attended. I got very good prizes as well in almost all the three of these. So it is a preparation. I would say preparation has helped me a lot, and also it is support from my faculty. Uh, as I said, see, you should never hesitate to ask. Only when you ask, you will get the support. So especially there is this a competition is on building a bridge, a cable stayed bridge that will be able to take some load. There's a competition based on that. So we completed the designing of it, and we actually spoke with Anil Babu sir. He may not be working now. We actually took support from him for STAD analysis. That is the first time I understood, okay, how the STAD works during that designing phase of that particular competition. So we got good support from him, and without which it may not be possible to actually understand how we should be designing it to take maximum load. So that competition we got. I mean, it took almost 195. It is a small 120 centimeters cable stayed bridge made of aluminum frames, and it took close to 195 kgs weight. That was a record. Then that for that we got first prize, and second prize was to 145 kg one, and third prize is for 120. That is a huge difference that was there back then in that competition. And I got the award from Devdas Menon for that. So the thing is, one I would say the practice, and only when you practice you will know the basics of it, and you need to understand it. Okay, just knowing something doesn't mean you know everything. Okay, so you need to speak with the people, interact with your guides or mentors to get uh, to know how it is done, how it is actually done. So maybe you know how to do section analysis, maybe you know how to do a shear force diagram or bending moment diagram, but that won't actually help you entirely, right? You should actually, so that might help you when you're designing it locally. And if you want to design something in a bigger scale, you need to know how each element works. Okay, that you will know only when you speak with your professor. Okay, everything won't be taught on your textbooks. Okay, one thing is you need to read a lot, read your engineering books, make use of library. And second one is the professor is the best resource. If you're going to library, you need to search for it, and if you're not good at searching, it will take a lot of time. But nowadays, as you have Google as your platform, I mean, you can search anything. That is even for that, you need to have a skill to search it. How to search it, you should know. And that about your professor is your best mentor. Okay, so only thing is you should not hesitate to ask him. And if you feel okay, if you feel that whatever he's saying, there is something wrong in whatever he's saying, debate with him. Okay, debate with him, and you gain, see, well, even while debating, you will get to know his point of view, right? Why he is thinking he is right. even that point of view might be correct. Okay, that you would know only when you speak with your professor, when you raise your question to the professor. So don't hesitate to ask questions. You might already know the answer, but you might actually know a different perspective of the answer. A question can be interpreted in a number of ways. Okay, you'll know a new perspective by speaking with the professor, even if you know the answer. So even if you know the answer, don't hesitate. Okay, ask questions. Even if you have a 1% doubt on it, on a particular concept, ask. He's not going to kill you. Okay. Yeah.
So, what do you like the most about GVP COE?
GVP COE, I would say my guide and mentor, Professor Manchkandi sir. Both my internship and my final project was mentored by him. So my final project is on bitumen, the studies on bitumen. It is a metal related experimental study. So he is a motivating factor for me as well during that period when I was doing the project. Actually, we don't have an entire test setup in the GVP. So we got reference from him to in AU to get our tests, some of the tests done there. So and also the report part of it. Your professor is going to help you a lot if you ask on the report. You should know how to present it. You won't know it by on the first instant you make the report, right? You will always make mistakes. Speak with your professor. Okay. So my final project was a very good memory for me as far as the GVPCA goes. Also, I used to like we used to interact with our seniors a lot. Even I have contacts of them even today. I mean, I completed my bachelor's in 2011. Even today, I'm in touch with a couple of my seniors. So my seniors is one of the best thing that happened to me in GOPC. We used to play volleyball, and also we used to have very good discussions. Even when we were organizing this techno symposiums, we used to interact with our seniors to organize the events. We always involved our seniors, even when we are organizing it. We did involve our seniors to getting things. I mean, involve them to know nitty-gritties of organizing things. So it is our seniors, I would say, and my professor and the volleyball as a game. These are the good things that happened to me in GOPCOE.
We are so thankful for giving us your valuable time and sharing your memories and opinions with us.
Yeah.
Your motivational words made our mind pleasant. For sure, we will try to comply with your suggestions. Thank you for making this interview very productive for everyone, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, and all the best.